You've touched a place deep inside me, one I didn't know existed. The vulnerability you've awakened has stripped away every defense, leaving me raw, exposed, and uncertain of how to protect myself from what I now feel. You've unlocked a door I didn't even know was there. A part of me that was once closed off, fearful of feeling too deeply, now opens with each thought of you. And with it comes a vulnerability I never imagined I'd be willing to embrace. I didn't plan on this. I didn't expect to feel so open, so fragile, so deeply affected by you. But here I am, allowing myself to be seen in ways I've never allowed anyone before, because you've made me trust in a way I never thought possible. What you've done to me isn't something I can easily describe. You've brought me to a place where my walls have crumbled, and I stand exposed to the world, raw in my feelings, yet strangely at peace with this newfound vulnerability. It feels like you've taken a part of me I didn't even know I was willing to give, and in doing so, you've shown me a depth of vulnerability I never thought I'd allow myself to experience. And yet, here I am, thinking of you, feeling you, living with this new openness. I thought I knew how to protect my heart, how to keep it safe from the world, but you've shattered that illusion. You've made me feel things that leave me uncertain, questioning my own strength and yet feeling more alive than ever before. You've done something to me that no one else has managed. You've made me believe in love and in trust despite all my fears. And now, here I stand, vulnerable, unsure of what's next, but undeniably changed by you. This vulnerability you've awakened in me, I didn't seek it, but now that it's here, now that you've peeled back all my layers, I find myself thinking about you constantly, feeling things I didn't know were possible, and letting myself be open in a way I never thought I could. I can feel my guard slipping, but there's no part of me that wants to stop it. You've made me question everything I thought I knew about my own strength, my own resilience, and what it means to be truly vulnerable with someone. I've always prided myself on being strong, untouchable, unbreakable. But you've made me realize that true strength isn't in being impenetrable. It's in allowing myself to be vulnerable with someone, even when it scares me. There's a part of me that wants to run, to hide, to protect myself from the vulnerability you've created. But at the same time, there's something beautiful in this, something that calls me to surrender to these feelings, to let myself be open and raw, even when I'm not sure what that means. It's strange to feel so vulnerable and yet so alive. You've opened up emotions inside me I thought were long buried, and in doing so, you've shown me a side of myself that I wasn't ready to face. Every time I think about you, a part of me feels exposed, like I'm standing naked before the world, completely unguarded. And yet, I can't deny that I've never felt more connected to my true self than I do in this moment of vulnerability. I didn't expect to fall into this feeling, into this depth of vulnerability. But now that I'm here, I find myself embracing it, wanting more of it, even though it scares me to let go in such an intimate way. You've touched me in ways no one ever has before, making me feel things I didn't even know I was capable of. And with each thought of you, my heart opens wider, my mind becomes clearer, and my vulnerabilities show up, demanding attention. I've always kept my emotions at bay, safely hidden from the world. But with you, it's different. You've brought out something in me that I didn't know I could share. A rawness, a tenderness, a willingness to be open and unguarded. There's a beauty in vulnerability, one that you've taught me to embrace. But with that beauty comes a fear of being hurt, of being aimed. And yet, I can't help but let myself feel everything I thought I was strong enough to ignore. I've never been good at letting my guard down, but you've found a way in. You've made me vulnerable in ways I didn't think were possible. And though I fear the unknown, I also crave the connection that comes with this openness. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something beautiful and terrifying. The vulnerability you've drawn out of me has opened a floodgate of emotions I never saw coming. And now I'm not sure if I can ever go back to who I was before. You've done something to me, something that has cracked open the walls I built so carefully around my heart. And now I find myself standing before you, vulnerable and unafraid to show the parts of me I once kept hidden. Before you, I thought I knew what it meant to be strong. But now I see that true strength is in allowing myself to be vulnerable with someone, to feel everything without fear of being judged or hurt. I never thought I would allow anyone to see me like this, exposed, raw, and uncertain. But somehow, you've made it feel safe to show myself fully, even if it means being vulnerable and uncertain. I didn't expect to feel this way, to be so open, so vulnerable, so unguarded. But with you, it's like all my defenses have crumbled, leaving me exposed to feelings I can't control. The vulnerability you've created in me is like nothing I've ever known. It's uncomfortable, It's raw, it's terrifying, but it's also beautiful in its own way. And for the first time, I'm not afraid to feel it. You've shown me a side of myself I didn't even know existed. The side that's willing to be vulnerable, to open my heart and mind to someone, to let go of all the walls I've spent so long building around myself. With you, I've allowed myself to be seen in ways I've never allowed anyone before. The vulnerability is overwhelming, but it's also liberating. And now I can't imagine going back to the way I was before. There's a power in vulnerability, and you've shown me that. It's not weakness, but strength in embracing my emotions, in letting myself be open with someone who truly understands what it means to be seen. It's like you've stripped away all the layers I've carefully constructed around my heart. And now I stand here vulnerable, uncertain, yet fully alive in the rawness of what I feel. What you've done to me isn't something I can easily explain. You've made me feel things I didn't know I was capable of, and with each thought of you, I find myself opening up more and more, letting go of the fear that once kept me safe. I've never been good at being vulnerable, but with you, it feels like I have no choice. You've opened up a door to a part of myself I never knew existed, and now I find myself standing in the light of what it means to truly be seen. You've touched me in ways no one ever has. The vulnerability you've brought out in me is both terrifying and beautiful, and I find myself wondering if I'll ever be the same after experiencing this. I can feel the walls I've built around myself slowly crumbling with every moment I spend thinking about you. You've made me vulnerable in ways I never thought I'd allow, and now I can't help but embrace it, even though it's scary. The vulnerability I feel is new to me, foreign even, but it's also something I can't ignore. With you, I feel exposed, but also free in a way I've never felt before. I never thought I'd let anyone see me this way, unguarded and vulnerable. But you've made me realize that sometimes being open is the only way to truly experience what it means to feel deeply. With you, vulnerability doesn't feel like a weakness. It feels like a strength I didn't know I had. And even though it scares me, I'm learning to embrace it because I trust you more than I've ever trusted anyone before. You've made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. The vulnerability you've awakened in me has opened a door to a world of emotions I never thought I'd allow myself to experience, And now I can't help but dive deeper into this new reality. I've spent so long keeping my heart protected, but with you, I feel like I can finally let go. You've made me vulnerable, yes, but in doing so, you've also shown me a side of myself I never knew I was capable of embracing.